I'm a huge Audrey fan, but unfortunately, I really do think that Breakfast at Tiffany's is just like one of the worst little movies that she's been in. Not because it's through no fault of her own. Put a finger down if you were in the airport waiting for your flight because you got there way too early and there happened to be a piano nearby and someone decided to start playing the piano and they were playing all of these lovely classical tunes and it was so nice. It was so great. And then they started playing Moon River and you just started bawling like a baby. I'm putting my hair up for this one because genuinely discussing Breakfast at Tiffany's gets me so heated for so many different reasons. Oh wait, she has a little scar. She has a little scar. I don't think you can see it, but like, let's see. You could, yeah, right there. She has a little scar. I'm devastated. Who hurt you, girl? I'm a huge Audrey fan, but unfortunately, I really do think that Breakfast at Tiffany's is just like one of the worst little movies that she's been in. Not because it's through no fault of her own. I really do feel like Marilyn Monroe should have gotten the role. Marilyn Monroe should have been Holly. Marilyn Monroe should have been Holly. I should have been in that timeline. If a genie, brother, if I ever get 3 wishes from a bottle, I want to see the timeline where Marilyn Monroe played Holly Golightly. Okay, it probably wouldn't have saved her, but I do think that it would have been one of those roles that just kind of changed, or at least adjusted the trajectory of her life and pop culture, but I don't know, whatever. I'm just a girl. Okay, so let's actually get to the good stuff. I think that the Breakfast at Tiffany's film spits in the face of the original short story. I said it, okay? It's not good compared to the short story. I think that they made a lot of changes in order to even make the film like adaptable for the mainstream audience at the time. I think that audiences couldn't handle what the short story was actually about, and they took the funnest elements and then they just kind of played with them and were a little silly and mix and matched. And you know, I don't think the movie is bad, but it's so weak because I know what it's trying to imitate. I know what it was trying to be, and I know how it falls short. So I'm going to do a rundown of the narrative the best I can, but I truly believe that the best way to experience the Breakfast at Tiffany's short story is to just read it yourself. It's challenging. It took me several rounds to really comprehend what was going on and begin recognizing how much intention was built into the narrative, but it is so worth it. We begin the narrative at Joe Bell's bar, and Paul is called in because Joe Bell hits him up and is like, hey, we need to talk. And Joe only ever wants to talk when it's about Holly. So Paul knows, okay, it's about Holly. So they go to the bar, they talk. Joe Bell brings out photos. It turns out that Mr. Yunioshi has taken a photograph of a wooden sculpture of Holly's face that was found somewhere in Africa. I don't know if they actually say the specific region, but the story is that Holly rode into town with 2 people who were sick, and the 2 people who were sick, you know, they went into isolation to, you know, heal, but she ended up, like, associating with a guy there, and blah, 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 right? And they go back and forth, and they have a discussion about this, and Paul, he doesn't think she's there, but he's also like, yeah, she would have gone there probably. And Joe Bell is very much, you know, concerned for her, and what ends up happening is they just kind of part ways, and Paul decides to go back to the place that he lived at when Holly was around, okay? And from there, we begin at the beginning of them meeting, okay? Because it's all, like, reminiscing, okay? So, Paul met Holly. Well, he didn't actually meet Holly. This is an interesting thing that the movie didn't do. Holly was living her life, doing her thing, and unless she was trying to get into the building, she did not interact with Paul. And the thing about Holly is that throughout the narrative, there is this, I don't want to call it a mean streak, but she has this bad habit of just raining on his parade over and over and over. So there are several instances where they cross paths or they talk, and Holly just makes him feel like really inadequate. Like, one of his friends decides to take him to like a really fancy bar, and he sees Holly there, and she doesn't acknowledge him, and she looks bored, and you know, she ruins the vibe. Okay, she ruins the vibe, and he kind of witnesses her like associating with all of these different people, and like like dancing with soldiers, or, you know, so on and so forth. All of these different things happen. But to make a long story short, some way or another, oh, yeah, so one day he's in his room, he's minding on business, he's happy in his little apartment, it's a 1 bedroom, and Holly, like, kind of, like, breaks in a little bit, and she's like, hey, I'm sorry, there's a guy upstairs, and, like, you know, she shows, like, he bites, you know, the implication being that she's been assaulted, and they talk and talk and talk and talk, and she insults his home, okay? She insults his home. Like, full stop. She's literally like, it's horrendous in here, and he gets upset because he likes his apartment. It's his first apartment. It's his, okay? So they end up having a fight toward the end of their interaction, and Holly runs away, and she doesn't want to talk to him. No. If I do remember correctly, she sends him a really luxurious gift basket, and she's like, oh, I'm not gonna bother you anymore, blah, 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 blah. And Paula is like, you're allowed to bother me, like, you can interact with me, it's fine. But she doesn't want to, like, she doesn't want to associate with him. But when they had interacted the night prior, she had mentioned that every Thursday, she always forgets it's Thursday, and that she has to go run an errand at Sing Sing. And Paul is like, oh, I'll just leave her a little note on Wednesday reminding her that Thursday is coming. And then she's like, oh my god, thank you so much. You want to come to a party? And he's like, sure, I'll go to the party. So he goes to the party, and what ends up happening is he walks in, place is totally unfurnished. It's at least like twice the size of his apartment, and everyone there is a guy. She collected it is very much implied that she collected all of the men who were, like, eligible bachelors in her eyes, and she put them in the same room together. So Paul, he's like, okay, this is a situation. These sure are circumstances. And he meets OJ Berman, and OJ Berman tells him, oh my god, like, do you know the kid? Do you think she's a phony? Blah, 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 blah. And what Paul learns is that Holly met OJ in California at the Santa Anita racetrack, okay? And that she had been, like, 15, and she had paired off with one of the jockeys, and OJ had run interference because, you know, amoral, right? He was like, oh, I threatened to call the morality police on him, and he left, you know? But what happened is Holly had an accent, and she had glasses, okay? That's a really nice little detail that I like. Holly is short-sighted, and she always wears her sunglasses, so, like, it's like this double metaphor, right? She is short-sighted, and she is constantly, like, trying to have some sort of barrier between herself and others. I just think it's neat. I really like that. Like, great job, Truman! Great job, Truman. You're great. Love you. Anyway, so Paul is like, you know, he's starting to piece together, like, wow, you know, she's, like, living this particular lifestyle and doing all of these different things, but her backstory is a little mysterious. She's got something going on. OJ mentions that she was an Okie, and the thing about Okies is that an Okie, I don't know, I think it might have been a slur, I'm not sure, but, like, now it doesn't matter, because it's like, who calls anyone an Okie? An Okie was basically, like, a poor, displaced person, because the Dust Bowl happened. And if you do the little timeline, you can see that in this narrative, Holly Golightly would have been 6 years old when the Dust Bowl occurred. So, you know, for some reason, she's in California, and she's already starting to associate with, like, richer, wealthier people, right? And OJ teaches her how to talk. He teaches her how to dress. He gets her accent out of the way. He even tries to get her to be, like, a movie starlet, you know? And she runs away to New York. And OJ, he says something along the lines of, you can break your back for her and she'll serve you shit on a platter. And then Holly shows up and she's like, hey! And he's like, bleh, you know? Holly's so friendly, but he is so, like, just done with her. Like, he literally tells her to beg off, you know? And the party, you know, it goes on, and eventually this guy shows up, and he's rich, okay? His name is Rusty Trawler, and what happens is Paul, he's being a wallflower, he decides to, like, look at Holly's bookshelf, you know, just to, you know, get an idea of who she is. And he finds that there are books about baseball and there are books about horses. And he opens up one of the books and he finds that there are all these articles about Rusty Trawler. She was doing her research on him. Okay? So Holly eventually finds him and she's like, oh, what you reading? And he's like, nothing. You know, they're doing their little song and dance, right? And what ends up occurring is, and I see you, Truman, I see you, okay? This woman shows up and her name is Mag Wildwood. And she is tall. She has an accent. She's got a stutter, okay? She's Southern. And she just, like, steals the attention because Holly was hosting this party and she was the only woman. So, you know, she was setting it up in a particular way. But then Mag Wildwood shows up. Brother! She messes up the whole thing, right? Because it's very clear that Holly wants this party to be, like, men around her. But then Mag arrives and all of the men gravitate, like, they either split or they gravitate towards Mag. And Mag, you know, she ends up going to the bathroom. And Holly says while she's gone, like, oh, you know, she looks remarkably well, you know, considering what she's struggling with. She basically implies that Mag has, like, some sort of disease, okay? And suddenly, all of the guys at the party are like, ooh, we don't want that. And the party scene always bugged me in Breakfast at Tiffany's, the film, because I never understood what was going on there. The party scene has so much significance in the short story. So much significance. There is so much information that you can get from that. Specifically in regards to Mag versus Holly. Mag, rich, white, Southern woman, okay? And there are details further in the text that help to establish that Mag is wealthy. There is a town named after her. Her father served in the military, so on and so forth, right? So they establish that Mag comes from a wealthy background, that she's from the Deep South. And it's really interesting to think about why Holly behaves the way she does under those circumstances, because Holly is Southern and she is not wealthy, and she was taught to change everything about herself, right? She was poor, she had an accent, she literally jumped through hoops to, you know, OJ taught her to change everything about herself. And now there's this woman walking into her party who is exhibiting all the traits she was taught to, like, stifle and hide and, like, do away with. And she's winning all the men, like, qualities that are undesirable, quote unquote, you know, like having a really thick Southern accent at this point in time in history within the narrative, right? Really thick Southern accent, right? It's associated with poverty. It's associated with displacement, you know, vagrants. Mag has that accent, but because of her wealth, she is not scrutinized the way that Holly was scrutinized. I just think it's really interesting to chew on. So basically, Holly, you know, she says that, she disseminates that rumor, and Mag comes back, and she's, of course, frustrated, because it's like none of the men want to interact with her anymore. And it's just a big old mess. And she gets drunk, and she ends up actually just, like, passing out in Holly's apartment. And, like, the party ends, and Paul, he just heads back to his place, you know, and he finds out, oh, Mag and Holly are living together now. And what's really interesting, and this is just me observing, okay, Holly, even though she does not like Mag, chooses to befriend Mag for personal social capital. You know what I'm saying? She does not like this person, but this person is wealthy. This person knows other wealthy people, and she specifically chooses to continue associating with her, even though we saw she does not like her and wants to sabotage her. Oh, and then here's another small detail. She talks about Tiffany's. Nothing bad could ever happen to you there. Not with those kind men in their nice suits and the lovely smell of silver and alligator wallets. If I could find a real-life place that made me feel like Tiffany's, then I'd buy some furniture and give the cat a name. So that specific quote does a lot to contextualize the character of Holly Golightly, because Holly Golightly, we can infer that she started off poor and she had to change everything about herself, and that she dealt with a lot of insecurity early in life, and that potentially the reason why she is choosing to befriend people that she doesn't like and associate with wealthy men. Oh, also, it's worth mentioning that earlier in the narrative, at some point, I don't remember exactly when, she mentions that she has trained herself to like older men. God, please, no. But it's just worth keeping in mind that, like, breakfast at Tiffany's, it's not about the money, it's not about the status, it's about being protected and safe, because you have money and nothing bad ever happens to people with money in wealthy spaces. That's just me. Holly befriends Mag Wildwood, and they start associating a lot, to the point where they actually go on vacation as a group. Her, Jose, who is either president of Brazil or going to be president of Brazil. So it's Holly, Jose, Rusty, and Mag, and they go on a trip. And what ends up happening is that Mag and Rusty, Mag gets like a horrible sunburn. She gets hospitalized. Rusty breaks his back a little bit. Just a bit. So Holly and Jose go to Havana together. And Holly, you know, this creates a rift between her and Mag, right? They have a fight about it. But it is worth mentioning that Holly starts to do research about Brazil during this time period. She's intentionally targeting Jose, okay? And what is really, really, really interesting about Holly Golightly is that she's not being silly. There's a level of, like, is she naive? Yes. Is she potentially, you know, a 20-year-old running around with the mind of a 15-year-old? Yeah. But she is not stupid. And then, small detail I want to point out, really early in the narrative, when Holly gives Paul his, like, gift box, guys, it specifically says that she had, like, crazy handwriting. Like childlike scrawling. Okay, like chicken scratch. So that leads me to believe, as a reader, that Holly Golightly potentially did not have that great of an education. And there are several instances in the book where she's talking to Paul about his work, because he's a writer. And she antagonizes him because she's like, I don't get it. I don't know why you would write about that. And of course she wouldn't. Second graders don't read Schindler's List. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't engage with it that way because their brains are not made for it, right? And honestly, no second grader should go near Schindler's List. Like, that's something you really need to, like, grow up and be prepared for. But, you know, just what I'm trying to communicate, right? I think that Holly Golightly is, you know, she is uneducated, but that doesn't make her stupid, right? She knows what she's doing. She's being very intentional about who she talks to, who she engages with. She has a lot of social intelligence in that way. Anyway, her and Paul get into a fight. They get into a fight, right? Because she chooses the wrong dialogue options. And it's unfortunate, but they get into a fight. And then she starts really getting into a relationship with Jose. And what ends up happening is Holly's ex-husband arrives, okay? It turns out that she was married to, like, a way older dude when she was, like, 14 years old, okay? And he comes and he's like, you know, you belong with, like, me and the children and blah, 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 right? So Paul begins to learn, okay, so Holly was a child bride. She was from Tulip, Texas. And Holly, you know, she successfully dodges him. You know, she stays with him and, like, goes so far as to be at the bus station with him when it's time to leave, and then she's like, you know, I'm not going with you, right? And she ends up, like, the narrative kind of cuts to her in the bar with Paul, with Joe Bell, talking about everything going on, and she's like, you can't give your heart to a wild thing. It's honestly an incredible rant, but I don't have it in front of me right now. Unfortunately, you know, as we progress through the narrative, it turns out that Holly's brother, who gets brought up repeatedly throughout the short story, has died. He died. And this just tips Holly over the edge, right? Because a lot of what she was doing was with the underlying motivation of, you know, eventually reconnecting with her brother and, like, providing him with a home and, you know, giving him horses. So Holly, she crashes out so bad. She crashes out so bad. It's absolutely devastating. And Paul, because Paul is good and kind, he's so concerned for her, even though, they had a falling out. And he does a lot for Holly. He does so much for Holly, even though she doesn't deserve it. They have a little bit of a weird relationship, but it's not romantic. It's very much like just another human caring about another human. And when Holly's brother dies, she starts to change. Okay? At this point, she's in a relationship with Jose. She starts to furnish her home. And in this way, the narrative is communicating that she is warming up to the idea of belonging to somebody. But she does not name the cat. She does not name the cat, and I think that's the absence of naming the cat means a lot to me as a reader. It means that even though she was warming up to the idea, even though she was considering the concept of belonging to someone, a small part of her never named the cat. She never gave the cat a name. So, what ends up happening is Holly is arrested for associating with Sally Tomato. The errands from Sing Sing, right? And after this scandal breaks, Holly is taken into custody, and then I don't know why she gets hospitalized, but it kind of cuts to a hospital, and she's, recovering or whatever. And really, the worst thing that could possibly happens. Jose is like, you're not the person I thought you were, I'm not going to continue a relationship with you, blah, 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 blah. It's implied that she is pregnant at this point, It's truly the most devastating situation she could possibly be in, because, she was so ready to commit to someone. She might be pregnant, and he abandons her, and she had furnished the home. She had changed. And what she decides to do is she decides to run away. And Paul helps her. Okay, Paul helps her. Like, Paul, he is a good human. He helps her. And she decides she is going to run away to Rio. And they're in the car together. And what ends up happening is she is like, we're going to Spanish Harlem, and she dumps the cat. And she freaks out. She wants to find the cat afterwards because she realizes, oh my god, we do belong to each other. Paul is like, you know what, I will help. You're gonna go, I'll find the cat, I'll write to you, I'll keep you posted, I'm going to look for the cat. And he does. He looks for the cat every single day when she's gone. But what ends up happening is she leaves. And life goes on. And one day Paul gets a postcard that basically is like, I'm gonna paraphrase, but it's basically like, I'm in Brazil, I'm in Buenos Aires, I found a guy, it might be love, he has a wife though, and also 7 kids, I'll send you an address when I know where I'm gonna be. And then that's the last he hears of her. Ever. And the narrative ends with Paul just kind of reflecting, and he has this incredible little, like, the final chunk of the narrative. He just talks about how he really, really wished that he could get in contact with Holly, because there were so many things that he wanted to tell her about. He wanted to tell her about how the Trawlers were divorcing. Oh yeah, the Trawlers got married, by the way. The Trawlers were divorcing. He wanted to tell her about how he, like, got a job. Just, there was, like, this list of different things that he wanted to tell her about. And then we get to the end. And he brings up, like, oh, I really wanted to tell her that the cat had found a home. That I had found him. Because he kept his promise. He looked for the cat religiously. And he found it. And it was in someone's home. In Spanish Harlem. So, the cat found a home. And, like, I'm forgetting the final line, but he basically says something like, African hut or whatever, I hope Holly finds a home too. And it's just so devastating, dude. It's so... Ugh. I truly, like, this is one of my favorite short stories of all time, okay? It's one of my favorites. It's up there with Never Marry a Mexican, which I will gladly do a video about if you're interested, because Never Marry a Mexican is... I don't know what was going on there. But it messed me up, and it was well executed. And the title is inflammatory, Never Marry a Mexican. It's a weird one. It's just a weird one. But what's so devastating to me about the story of Breakfast at Tiffany's is that it's about this young, damaged woman, and detail... I'm trying to go through the plot, so I've been missing details. But there's a point in the narrative where Holly brings up, oh, you know, like, I haven't had that many lovers in my life, only 11, but that's not counting anything that happened before 13, because, like, before 13 it doesn't count. So, like, guys, Holly Golightly has so much going on, and the narrative truly is about a damaged young woman actively attempting to not only, like, find security, I would guess, chase an idea of security, chase wealth, put herself in a position to, you know, like, in my mind, the narrative is about this young woman who is just, like, so just damaged and desperate and leaning into her dysfunction in an effort to just ascend through the social hierarchy to protect herself. And that's not what the movie is about. It's not. And really, I feel like this is the thing, you know, you could argue Holly Golightly is the main character. I think it's shared. I think it's split right down the middle. Paul and Holly are two sides of the same coin, and they reinforce each other's character, because Paul places so much value on, like, he's a writer. He understands the nuances of people. He is attached to things. He is invested in the mundane. Holly, you know, she has so much going on. She is very motivated by this abstract goal of, like, achieving this specific, like, lifestyle. And at the end of the day, Paul misses her. And that's what's so devastating, because by the time you reach the end of the short story, you just start realizing, oh my god, this little short story is not... It's not just about a damaged girl or, like, a friend that was scorned. It's about someone who was not able to be loved, and someone who wanted to give love, kind of canceling each other out. Because, and I saw this quote somewhere, on Pinterest, of course, grief is love with nowhere to go. And by the end of the narrative, Paul is very much grieving. That is what's going on. Because he wants... It really is like she died, right? Because she's out there. She's beyond his reach. He can't find her. But she's out there, right? She's, like... she's kind of haunting him, you know? And he wishes so badly to, like, bridge that divide. But it's not an option that Holly is extending, because Holly never really got the opportunity to heal. Energy spent surviving is not energy that can be spent growing. And truly, like, this short story is so good. This short story means everything to me, and I can't watch the Breakfast at Tiffany film without feeling a little bit upset. Unfortunately, the film does not take the time to explore any of the elements that makes Holly Golightly so interesting. I would argue that the film paints her in a very shallow, surface level, almost pristine light. They want all of the cute and fun party girl elements without any exploration of the damage informing her decision making. And I watched the movie, and I didn't like Holly Golightly. I didn't like her. I found her to be difficult and frustrating. But when I read the book, I truly sympathize with her character. And I genuinely believe she is one of the strongest female characters I have ever had the pleasure of reading. Okay, so we finally made it to the end, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed talking about this book. I think it's so interesting. I love juicy interpersonal dynamics between different characters. If you have a short story recommendation, please tell me all about it. I love reading. I need to read. It helps my brain feel better because now I'm back in school and it's just, wow, so overwhelming all of the time. If you enjoyed, please do me a favor. Leave a little comment. Drop an emoji of some kind. Drop the sunglasses emoji. That would be cute. Just like Holly, go lightly. Sunglasses, iconic. By the way, Tiffany's sells sunglasses. I decided to go on the Tiffany's website just for funsies, and they sell sunglasses, and they have a lifetime warranty, and now I'm just sitting here like, well, I want them so badly. And they do actually serve breakfast. I don't know why they do that, but like, okay, cool. Anyway, hi, thank you for making it to the end of the video. You're cool. Leave a comment, subscribe, give me a book recommendation. Yay.